This tells me that Shedeur Sanders doesn't need the NFL. Because after that video dropped, guess what else dropped? The NFL executives ranking him the worst quarterback.
They tried to bury him in the depth chart, and instead of clapping back with words, Shedeur Sanders just went and dropped a Gucci campaign and a Nike shoe reveal on the same week the Browns quietly pushed him down to third-team reps. No press conference, no subtweet, just receipts. And the internet noticed immediately because while everybody's arguing about who's taking first-team snaps in Cleveland, Shedeur reminded the whole world that his brand was never tied to a depth chart in the first place. Let's get into it. So here's what actually happened. Reports all offseason were telling us Shedeur was going to get real run with the ones, first team reps, a genuine look at QB1. That's not what showed up. Instead, he ended up sharing second-team work with Gabriel, and on top of that, pulling third-string reps too. Meanwhile, Deshaun Watson, the guy still owed all that guaranteed money, has not touched a single second-team rep, only firsts. You do not need a playbook to read that. When one guy only gets ones and the other guy's bouncing between twos and threes, that's the org telling you who they're building around, whether they say it out loud or not. Now, plenty of people were out here hyping Shedeur as the guy walking into the starting job this year. And look, hope is fine. But when the reps tell a different story, ignoring that to keep views up isn't reporting. It's just picking a side that pays better. The reality is the writing has been on the wall for a minute. Shedeur likely isn't opening the season as the starter. That's not an insult to him. That's just what a two-man competition with unequal reps usually means. But here's the part that got lost in all the he's benched panic. Shedeur didn't respond with a rant. He didn't respond with a call-out post. He responded the way he's responded to every version of this since Jackson State and Colorado. He let the business do the talking. Because while the football conversation was all about reps and depth charts, Shedeur was dropping a Gucci moment that had nothing to do with a QB competition and everything to do with reminding people what tier he's actually operating on. That's the story nobody's really breaking down yet, so let's get into the reps drama first, because it sets up everything else.
Based on reports told that he will be receiving first-team reps, ultimately, I don't believe he got any. And he had to share second-team reps with Gabriel. Then he had to do third-team reps as well. Now, we also know, to the contrary, when it comes to Deshaun Watson, man, he ain't been taking no second-team, third-string reps. He's been taking only first-string reps. And, you know, the writing is pretty much on the wall with that story. To me, I don't believe Shedeur is going to be the starter. Yesterday just basically told us he's not going to be the starter. For people to be advocating that he was when they knowingly knew that he wasn't, to me, it's a disservice to you guys as an audience.
Say what you want about the reps, the brand deals aren't lying. Now, let's talk about why this benching narrative hits different for Shedeur than it would for basically any other backup quarterback in the league. Because this isn't some anonymous QB2 nobody's heard of. This is a guy whose movement was already bigger than football before he threw a single NFL pass. Compare him to Muhammad Ali level cultural weight, and I'm not saying that lightly. Shedeur built a following off being real with people, win or lose, good week or bad week. Whether he pulled up in a Rolls-Royce Cullinan or an Urus, he never rubbed it in anybody's face. He just let the hate pile up and kept moving. And that's exactly the pattern people need to pay attention to with this NFL rep situation. Because the same energy the league showed pre-draft, letting him slide all the way to round 5, is the same energy showing up now with the reps distribution. It's the same playbook. Make him wait. Make him earn every single rep the hard way. Show him who's really in control. And every single time that's been tried, all it's done is add fuel. It didn't shrink his brand, it grew it. He went from a college story to a national story to genuinely international at this point. So when the news broke about him losing first-team reps and people started calling it a benching, Shedeur's response wasn't a statement, it was a Gucci post. Think about what that actually means. Gucci is not handing international campaign placements to guys who are afraid their career is falling apart. That's a brand looking at where Shedeur's influence sits globally, not just what jersey number he's wearing on Sundays in Cleveland. LeBron has Louis Vuitton. Caitlin Clark has Prada. Those are the tiers we're talking about. And Shedeur, someone who hasn't even been named a starter yet in his second NFL season, is sitting in that same room. That's not a coincidence, and it's definitely not something a QB competition can take away from him.
The NFL is showing their true colors. See, the NFL is getting exposed for the racist league that they are. It's a good old boy system. We write your check, we size you up, we determine how much popularity you have.
Now stay with me here, because the Gucci drop isn't even the biggest part of his story. Here's where it gets real interesting. Because right around the same window this reps controversy was breaking, Shedeur also dropped footage tied to his Nike shoe deal. And I need you to understand how rare that actually is. Off the top of my head, in the entire history of the league, there are maybe 2 football players who've had their own shoes sold on shelves like that. Michael Vick and Shedeur's own father, Deshaun Sanders. That's it. That's the whole list. Quarterbacks, receivers, none of them are getting that kind of signature sneaker treatment the way basketball guys do. So for Shedeur to be sitting in that lane as a guy who hasn't locked down a starting job tells you the business people around him are not worried about a QB competition. They're building a brand that outlasts whatever happens on Sundays. And I'll say this, because I like connecting dots. That Nike footage dropped right in that same window, right before the reps started shifting, and right before NFL executives came out and ranked him the worst quarterback in the league. Now, I'm not saying that ranking and that video are directly connected. I'm not going to sit here and claim I know that for a fact, but I've been covering this long enough to not be naive either. The timing is exactly the kind of thing that gets people in a league office a little uncomfortable. A rookie who hasn't started a full season pulling major international fashion energy while the coaching staff is trying to control the QB conversation. That's friction. That's real friction. And that's really the heart of this whole story. It was never actually about whether Shedeur got mad about the depth chart. It's about what he chose to do instead of getting mad. He let Gucci and Nike do the talking, while the league was busy debating reps behind closed doors. That's the version of going viral for responding that actually happened here. Not a statement, not a press conference, just business moves loud enough to make the football conversation feel small by comparison.
This little video. Shedeur Sanders has a Nike shoe deal. Those you guys who do not know that. Football players don't sell sneakers well.
And this next part is exactly why I don't think this story is finished yet. Because here's the bigger truth underneath all of it. Shedeur's actual football legacy is already locked in no matter what happens with reps this preseason. He held his wrist up through years at Jackson State and Colorado, through every version of doubt people threw at him, and none of it moved his brand backward, not once. And based on how he responded this time around, quietly, through business, through Gucci and Nike instead of through the microphone, it's clear he still doesn't need the validation of a depth chart to feel secure in who he is. I've been around this story for years now, and I can tell you, the guy on camera and the guy off camera are 2 completely different people. On camera, everybody's got an opinion about him. Off camera, from what I've seen and been told directly, he's just locked in, working, focused. That disconnect is exactly why this whole benching narrative feels louder than it actually is. People are reacting to a headline about reps, while Shedeur is actually building something that has nothing to do with whether he's starter or third string this preseason. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying reps don't matter. They matter a lot, and the reality right now does lean toward Watson opening the season under center with a real ongoing competition still playing out through camp and preseason games. That part's still developing and worth watching closely. But what this week proved is that Shedeur's ceiling was never only about a QB battle in Cleveland. Gucci doesn't sign guys who were scared. Nike doesn't hand out shoe deals to guys whose value is only tied to a stat line. Those are brands betting on him as a global figure, football outcome or not. And that's the part of this story that never actually gets covered when everyone's busy arguing about who took first team reps this week.
Because after that video dropped, guess what else dropped? The NFL executives ranking him the worst quarterback in the league.
Put it side by side. A worst QB ranking on one hand, a Gucci campaign and a Nike shoe on the other. That's the real split screen here. So let's recap what we actually know versus what's just noise right now. What we know, Shedeur has been getting fewer first-team reps than reports promised, while Watson has kept every single one of his. That's real. That's from the practice field, not speculation. What we also know, right in that same stretch, Shedeur dropped a Gucci campaign moment and a Nike shoe footage that put him in a lane very few football players, active or retired, have ever touched. What's noise? The idea that any of this was some kind of angry statement aimed at the Browns. It wasn't a subtweet, it wasn't a call out, it was Shedeur doing what Shedeur has always done when people count him out, letting the results speak instead of the mouth. And what's still developing? How the actual QB competition plays out across preseason, because Watson is still the favorite right now, and that could shift with performance in these upcoming games. This isn't over, it's just getting started, and the business side of this story might end up being the bigger headline than whatever happens with the depth chart. At the end of the day, you can bench a guy on a depth chart, but you can't bench a brand that's already global. Shedeur didn't need a press conference to respond to this week. He needed a Gucci campaign and a Nike shoe, and the internet did the rest of the talking for him. So, here's what I want to know from you. Do you think this rep situation is the NFL genuinely trying to develop a two-man competition the right way? Or do you think this is the same old pattern of making Shedeur earn something twice as hard as everybody else has to? Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about it down there. And if you rock with videos like this, you already know what to do. Smash like and subscribe.